The USA declares war on Germany. It is not it is it is not an army we must shape. It's an entire nation. Woodrow Wilson. World War One. War is no longer Samson with his shield and spear or sword, and David with his sling. It is a conflict of smokestacks now. The combat of the driving wheel and the engine. America had a big undertaking, getting an entire nation into the war spirit, after trying to keep its neutrality, and all the war goods for the Allies, which were meant for the Allies, were to be turned around to supply the American army. The wheels were rolling though. The government called for big business tycoons were made to regulate and distribute war goods, and all private shipping was commandeered, and even more shipyards were built. Like all wars, propaganda, whether passive or aggressive, wanted US citizens to join up, or to save food, or fuel, or simply just buy war bonds. But how did it all come to this? Mass conscription and the German anti-sentiment and riots with loads of chaos to boot. So even after the declaration of war, it would still take America a while to get into the fighting, especially in the European theatre, and they only declared war on Germany, so they didn't see much of the Middle East or the Alps. When I say Alps, Austro-Hungarian Empire. But just by the fact that they were gonna be over there was a relief. America had travelled a long and winding road of neutrality. At first, it was barely touched. America and Europe quarrels seemed to be Atlantic vast distances away from America, and separatism drove, and justly so, because a nation to stay out, and justly so, it became a nation out of the need to stay out and not get entangled in European quarrels and European affairs. And this separatism drove many Europeans from across the Atlantic. They came for the promise of men making vast fortunes in literally overnight, and personal freedoms were more extensive, but they could also remain very poor and be in slums, no different to that of Europe. You basically escape Europe kings, queens, princesses and princes for the kings and queens of Wall Street, or the business tycoons of Wall Street. The country was won after the Great Plains had disappeared in the late 19th century. In the late 19th century, when Buffalo Bill was still a thing, the Great Prairie, and all the nation turned into one. And they actually looked outwards from the nation, became a very surprising imperialist, got Guam from the Spanish-American Wars, Guam, Philippines, Albany, and many micro-states in Asia, and such and such. And Britain and German and Irish and Russian had a very good population, and of course you can't forget the Jews. But things took a swing in the first months of the war with Belgium, but Britain made the US a little upset after the blockade and seizing of US goods and contraband cargo. But something more shocking than the blockade was about to erupt, the anti-German sentiment, which was the sinking of the Lusitania. And so Americans just looked to the Allies for financial gain anyway, and prepared to make profit and be self-righteous at the same time, fighting for democracy and the freedom of all Europeans, and getting a little $100 on the side, of course. So the Allies had all the propaganda and controlled the American air with the rape of Belgium and the atrocities that were committed by Germans. Then there was the infamous Lusitania that left the harbour for Liverpool which the German foreign minister said anyone travelling 200 meters in the war zone will be travelling at their own risk and will be subjugated to sinking. So, and yes, it did had the infamous guns and ammunition aboard for the Allies. There were Americans on this ship, but so they set sail at their own risk. More than 8,000 people drowned, but of that were 114 Americans also did drown. It became an outrage in America, but Wilson kept his head because he was being too proud to fight. But Germany turned to sabotage in American factories and shipyards, trying to eliminate, stop the flow, maybe lessen the flow of war ammunitions and contraband to Europe. So that was another upsetting thing. They told America they were going to start to resume unrestricted U-boat warfare after shipping, after all the shipments, after all the bombardments. Things really got worse. Things really came to a boiling point when the U.S. government were given the infamous. So the US government gave the German ambassador his passport and started to contract arms to the army. Then the final blow came with Mexico. It has never been easy with Mexico and America, but it came to a boiling point, and the Germans saw this as a God-sent opportunity. If they were fighting with Mexico, they couldn't get their troops to Europe. And with Mexico, the peacemaker had no choice. The peacemaker had no choice. After they got the Zimmerman telegram, they had to make war. So on the 6th of April, 102 years ago, 2 days ago, the US declared war on Germany. Because, this was recorded Saturday, so 102 days ago. Yeah.